What happened at the Qatar GP is simply incredible. Lewis Hamilton, starting from position 18, staged one of the most epic comebacks ever seen in the modern era of Formula One. But the most shocking thing was not only his performance, but how he left Fred Vasseur and Charles Leclerc completely confused. What exactly happened? Why has this comeback put Ferrari in crisis? We tell you everything with technical, emotional and strategic analysis. Let's start. The 2025 Qatar Grand Prix will be remembered not for a classic podium, but for one of the most baffling and powerful performances ever seen in modern Formula One. Lewis Hamilton, Ferrari driver, started the race from 18th position after being eliminated in Q1 during qualifying for both the sprint and the Grand Prix. His car, the SF-25, was considered by many within the Scuderia itself to be an uncontrollable machine, with violent and unpredictable oversteer and a significant loss of downforce. Throughout the weekend, internal statements pointed to a total crisis. Since Friday, Ferrari's performance was described as catastrophic. Rear stability was so compromised that the car became unmanageable when braking or entering fast corners, something that affected both Hamilton and his teammate Leclerc. The team's own career projections did not contemplate any outstanding results, much less a comeback. Hamilton, however, managed to reverse that narrative completely. It didn't do it with one-lap speed because the SF-25 simply didn't have it. What he did was understand the car like no one else in the paddock. He managed to unlock a level of driving that surprised even his engineers, handling the hard tires for an extended stint with near-perfect thermal management. It was in this process where he surpassed multiple rivals without errors, while others suffered from the degradation of Lusail's abrasive asphalt. This performance cannot be reduced to luck or strategy. It was a masterclass in adaptation to adverse conditions. In a car that had been considered competitively unviable, Hamilton not only entered the points zone, but also rode at podium pace, making surgical overtakes and maximizing each lap. This run completely contradicted all of the team's previous data. In fact, the configuration with which he started the race was changed hours before, breaking the park firm after the sprint. And yet, with an initially incorrect setup, it achieved the unthinkable. The result of this comeback had a direct impact on Ferrari's internal structure. Until then, a clear narrative had been established. The car was the problem. But what happened in Qatar revealed that, although the SF-25 has deep flaws, the difference may also lie in the pilot who pilots it. The Lusail miracle was not an accident, it was a warning. One that left the engineers without answers, dismantled the confidence of his teammate and forced the technical management to review its own conclusions. Understanding how Lewis Hamilton transformed a practically uncontrollable car into a tool capable of competing against the best in the world requires looking beyond the simple result. His performance in Qatar was not a matter of raw speed, nor of having the fastest car on track. It was the reflection of a technical and mental ability that is rarely seen in this category. What Hamilton achieved goes beyond driving. It was a perfect reading of the context, a surgical adaptation to a defective car, and absolute psychological control. Even before the race, the internal perception at Ferrari was that the car had no solution. The engineers could not find answers, the simulators did not offer viable solutions, and the rear-by-wire system generated erratic behavior. The data showed that the SF-25 had zero performance, as Charles Leclerc literally said on Saturday. However, against all these odds, Hamilton not only made the car competitive, but also pushed it to the limit with concrete results. The secret was in his understanding of the tire. While other drivers, including in teams like Red Bull and McLaren, dealt with accelerated degradation, Hamilton applied a long stint strategy on hard tires that allowed him to execute a massive overcut. It was not a decision made by the wall, but an action born from his reading of the track lap after lap. Hamilton maintained optimal tire temperatures without overheating them, and lengthened his stopping window as his rivals slipped off the pace. But there is something even deeper. Internally, Ferrari talks about the so-called career mode. It's an informal expression some engineers use to refer to Hamilton's Sunday approach. It's when you turn off everything external, ignore the negativity and just execute. In Qatar, that mentality shielded him from any distraction. He did not respond to the press, he did not generate noise, he did not blame anyone. He just focused on understanding what the car needed to survive those conditions and build his career from there. There are drivers who sink when the car does not respond. Hamilton did the opposite. He found different braking zones, changed trajectories, smoothed cornering transitions, and adapted his style to a car that for many was undrivable. Even the team itself had admitted that the changes made after breaking the park firm on Saturday were in the wrong direction. Still, Hamilton managed to stabilize the car's platform enough to get competitive pace in dirty air. The most striking thing is that many of these adjustments were not in the technical plan. They were decisions made by instinct, experience and sensitivity. Adjustments that did not appear in simulation data or team meetings. That's why Vasseur was left speechless after the race. Because Hamilton not only beat rivals on the track, but also Ferrari's internal diagnoses. This performance is much more than a comeback. He is living proof of why Hamilton was hired to lead the 2026 project. Not because of his name, not because of his history, but because in impossible contexts, his ability to adapt is a technical tool in itself. Ferrari doesn't yet know how to fix the car, but it has rediscovered that it has a driver who can make even the worst of days have strategic value. What happened in Qatar was not just a demonstration of talent by Lewis Hamilton. It also triggered a very delicate internal problem for Ferrari, the erosion of Charles Leclerc's confidence. The Monegasque driver, who has been a central figure of the team for several seasons now, was deeply affected not only by the result, but by what he represents in terms of internal hierarchy and technical credibility. Leclerc came into the weekend with a clear vision. The car was unmanageable. His statements on Saturday were blunt. He spoke of zero performance in SF-25 and admitted he had no hope for the race. The figures supported that diagnosis. During practice and qualifying, Leclerc constantly fought against an unbalanced car, with aggressive oversteer and no stability under braking. He finished 10th in the general classification, barely managing to enter Q3 based on individual effort. But what changed everything was the direct comparison with Hamilton. While Leclerc fought to stay within the top 10, his teammate, who started from position 18 and came from a different configuration, managed to come back, manage the tires better and, above all, show a race pace that unsettled everyone within the team. There were no aerodynamic changes, there were no substantial improvements between one car and another. What separated both drivers was the way in which each interpreted the car's limits. For Leclerc, this difference in performance was symbolically devastating. Not only because Hamilton surpassed him on the track, but because he did so under the same conditions of adversity that he had pointed out as impossible to handle. The reading that is imposed is clear. The car is still problematic, but the real difference is in how it is driven. And that puts Leclerc in a very compromised position. Internally, this creates a serious side effect. When a team loses confidence in the performance of its lead driver, the development process becomes distorted. Technical decisions are based on the pilot's sensations, and if those sensations do not coincide with the reality of performance, the direction is lost. The Qatar GP left Ferrari with a dissonance between what Leclerc feels and what Hamilton shows is possible. This technical contradiction generated a double effect. On the one hand, it reinforces the decision to have signed Hamilton to lead the future of Ferrari. Their ability to find solutions outside of traditional models is precisely what is needed when technological resources are not enough. But at the same time, it exposes a structural flaw in the way the car's performance is being interpreted. In this sense, Hamilton's performance was not just a symbolic victory. It was a high-value technical experiment. Ferrari got answers it wouldn't have had otherwise. Data that neither the wind tunnel, nor the simulator, nor CFD analysis could replicate. Project 677, therefore, will not simply be a theoretical promise. It will be a car designed from track experience, from a real understanding of what it takes to compete and win. Ferrari's future is not guaranteed, but it is on track. The success of Project 677 will depend on whether they can turn these lessons into concrete solutions. Hamilton has set the bar high. Now the engineering must be up to par. What Lewis Hamilton achieved in Qatar completely transcends visible results. Beyond the classification, beyond the points and the race pace, what really happened at the Lusail circuit was a silent, but forceful repositioning of the role that Hamilton will occupy within Ferrari from now on. It was a victory that is not counted in trophies but in authority. After having been marginalized in qualifying, criticized by the Italian press, and even described by sectors of the paddock as irrelevant in the current competitive context, Hamilton turned a lost weekend into a demonstration of absolute control. He did not use high-sounding statements. He did not respond to attacks. He didn't ask for attention. He did what true champions do. He spoke with results. And that language was understood clearly inside and outside the team. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.